So this is me when I was grade 2, a very morena, proud to be brown. And I guess the first thing I ever sold was friendship bracelets. I would use my allowance and buy thread and weave them into bracelets. And I would sell them to neighbors and classmates and friends for 5 pesos. And when I got older, in our village, there was this office there, and they always had to leave to buy refreshments. And I thought, oh, no one was selling refreshments, so maybe I should take the opportunity to sell refreshments to them. So I set up a table with an umbrella and brought juices, snacks, and chocolates, and I was the only one selling to them. So I took the opportunity and, I started selling refreshments to them. Next slide, please. So this is me also growing up. I really loved to read and write. Whenever we would go to the mall, I would always tell my parents, can you bring me to National Bookstore so that I can buy books? Because I felt you can really explore, imagine, and enjoy, reading. And I translated this love for reading by creating my own short stories, poems, comics, and I even made up my own mock-up newspaper. And I sold this to family and friends. So that's a picture to show my love for reading. And if you ask me, I guess I've always had an entrepreneurial streak. I wasn't afraid to create things from scratch, find a solution, or to make the most out of opportunities. And I think it's very important for all the Cosmo girls that growing up, I was very lucky to be surrounded by parents who believed I can be anything. Actually, the dream of my parents was they wanted me to become a doctor, or a lawyer, or an entrepreneur, or back then they called it businessman. And those were professions normally dominated by men at that time. But even as young as when I was a kid, my parents felt you can be that person. And it's important to be surrounded by the right people who believe you can break barriers. Next slide, please. So I'll show a series of pictures from my modeling life. I used to model a lot, and now I just do it on a special basis. So this is one of the shoots with June De Leon. Next slide. A magazine shoot. Next slide. So here you see there's so much makeup when it comes to modeling. It looks really glamorous on the pages of a magazine, on the runway, or on a cover. Next slide. So here, when I remember the shoot, the makeup artist used lipstick on half of my face to achieve this artsy look. And I couldn't wash it off, and I remember driving home only thinking, sana hindi ako hulihin. Kasi if I have to roll down my window and say hi to the MMDA, kalahati ng face ko pula. And next slide. So more beauty shots. Next slide. So here are some of the covers I did, and a lot of them I grew up with Summit. I'm very proud that most of my covers were with them. And in fact, one of my first covers, this preview one, was with Summit. And so what triggered me to start my own makeup brand? Being in the modeling industry, I knew how it felt to wear makeup and then use makeup to cover the vicious effects of makeup. So it was a cycle. It looked so glamorous, but when I'd get home, my skin was really at its worst. In fact, it was during my modeling career that my skin was the most horrible. I had oily skin, patchy skin, pimples, irritations, and big pores. And you always think that makeup is there to make us look pretty, but it's so frustrating when you get home and wipe it off. You go home with ruined skin. And I've always believed that sayang naman our makeup. We all invest in good skincare, but it just gets ruined if you don't use the right kind of makeup, like Happy Skin, which is skin-caring makeup, but I'll get to that later. So a lot of my personal frustrations actually stemmed from my own experiences. Even as a beauty columnist, I would get so many emails from readers, and they would explain their frustrations with makeup and skincare. And looking at the industry back then, there were so many makeup brands. It was an exciting time, but there wasn't anything that could address the concern of Filipinos that we would break out when we use makeup. Next slide. So in 2013, Happy Skin was born. This is my photo in our very first store in Glorieta. That's our Happy Skin boutique. And like I said, it stemmed from a lot of my own pain points. I knew how it felt like to be the average consumer. You put makeup, but you just end up breaking out. Here's a fun fact. The Philippines is actually one of the lowest makeup users across Asia. Less than 25% of Filipinas use makeup compared to our neighbors like Korea or Japan, which is 75 or 80% who use makeup. And we realized that the #1 barrier that women face when using makeup is women are afraid to use makeup because they think it will ruin or break out their skin. Which is true, right? Isn't it when you see a woman na maganda skin, isipin mo, siguro hindi siya nagme-makeup. And that's what we wanted to address with Happy Skin. That's why Happy Skin is about makeup that cares for the skin. Another issue back then was 6 years ago, before Happy Skin started, the cosmetic landscape was just 90% imported brands, which was great. You know, we had access to all these amazing brands. But the cosmetic landscape was either mass drugstore brands or imported expensive brands. There was nothing in between. And that's why Happy Skin is also a masstige brand. It's a mix of mass and prestige. You get an affordable or a pocket-friendly price, but at the same time, the quality of an imported brand. So Happy Skin is a masstige brand. It's funny also because even if there were so many imported brands, their goal was to also create makeup that cares for the skin. And no other brand at that time had actively marketed itself as skin-caring makeup. I like actually saying that Happy Skin is a dual citizen of makeup and skincare because every product we put out has a skin-caring ingredient. Happy Skin products are made in beauty capitals like Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, and there's always a skin-caring ingredient. So I've always believed that truly good makeup should be your ally and not your enemy so that you really feel beautiful. So if I think back about myself and what I've been passionate about, you know, when we started Happy Skin, I always wanted that it would be a brand Filipinos would be proud of. And I think that's important. You know, hindi pwedeng a sige na mentality. We always wanted Happy Skin to have a global positioning. You know, it can compete with the rest of the world, and that was very important. So we wanted a brand that could sit alongside all these imported brands. So when you start your business, it's important to also think, where should you place it? And we knew that entering retail outlets like Rustan's and Beauty Bar was very important so that the brand could sit alongside all these imported brands so that it can give the brand credibility and you know, legitimize Happy Skin as a legitimate cosmetic brand. So, like I said, 90% it was all imported brands. And yeah, there, sorry, next slide. So I'd like to think that, you know, I'm so proud, actually, just looking at this Cosmo BEAUTYCON, there's so many local homegrown brands. And, you know, it's a great time. The more Pinoy brands there are, better. And iba na rin ang mindset ng Filipina. You know, there's so much Pinoy pride. You know, whether it's on Instagram, you have a new pair of shoes that you found from a local brand, or a new blouse, and you feel like ikaw lang may alam ng brand name, pero proud ka kasi Pinoy, di ba? Iba na yung pride natin for local and handmade. And it's an exciting time, really, because, and I'd like to think during 2013, what we were doing was a risk. And parang, you know, it was a bit difficult for us because it was unheard of. What? A local brand that can compete with imported brands, but we did it. And I'd like to think we kind of paved the way for other brands to also do the same thing. So this is our first key visual, or our first material that we put out. We started with very little products that time. And you can see Happy Skin, makeup that cares for the skin. So it's very important that, you know, in one line, a tagline, a person can understand in a single breath what your brand stands for. Kasi pag walang tagline, people will think, what's Happy Skin? Is it a derma clinic? Is it lotion? You know, what is it? But the tagline will help define in a single breath, in a single line, you know what the brand stood for. So I think when you start your business, it really starts with coming out with a great product or service. A lot of us, when we start our business, we think, okay, ano ba hilig ko? Shoes. Then you'll start a business. But I think it's very, very important to understand in the market what isn't being given, or what's the pain point, or what's the gap, what's the unmet need. And I want to let you know all of this because, you know, we always start a business on whim, but it's always so much better when you do solve a problem for the consumers. So what Happy Skin was solving was to provide skin-caring makeup. So sometimes, okay, yes, next slide, thanks. Where's the tech booth? Ah, dito pala. Sorry, can we go back to the last slide? So you have to think, is there a huge demand for that a lot of businesses are already serving? Or is there a product you haven't created that can actually serve that need? Sometimes it's about creating or coming up with an innovative product, or if you want to enter an industry that there are so many of that already, the end will be you're all competing with price. It will become a price war, and that can get difficult also. So what Happy Skin wanted to address is the fear of Filipinas of using makeup. And like I said, ultimately your product or your service has to be very good. It has to be very differentiated in a meaningful and relevant way so that it's very different from what your competitors are offering. And then once you've nailed it or you've gotten, you've pinned down that perfect product or service, you have to have a strong plan for the business. A lot of people kasi get into the business and think, I just need to launch it. I just need to do it fast. But you also have to think of the long term. You have to think where you want to go. It's not enough to just implement or launch something. You also have to think about the 5 years from now, the 10 years from now, and where you want to go. So I hope it won't sound too technical, but I want to bring up the word sustainable competitive advantage. So something is sustainable if it can last long term, competitive if it's competitive to other brands in the market, and it's an advantage if you're the only one who has it. But if it's something that can easily be copied, it's not a sustainable advantage to your brand. So you always have to think, what can I have as a brand that no other competitor can copy or easily imitate, and that will allow my brand to survive even 5 to 10 years from now? So I always like to say, you don't succeed by killing competition. You succeed by creating value. There's really no point in coming up with a brand if you're just going to offer something that's already in the market. But if you offer something that changes lives of the people or solves a problem or an unmet need in the industry, then always your consumers will come back to you. It's not about killing competition. It's about creating value to the consumers. So next slide, please. So I ended up writing a book, and I wanted to share more about it because it was so timely when Summit approached me to write a book. I didn't think twice to say yes. It's something I never dreamed of doing in my lifetime. And when the offer came, I was juggling running a business and also my MBA. And I didn't want to say no because I wanted to strike where the iron is hot and the opportunity was there. So it was such a challenge to write it while juggling so many things aside from family. And it's actually the first female business book of Summit. And why did I want to write a book, or why did I say yes to it? Because more than ever, I think there's so many women who want to start a business. Who among you want to start your own business or try to get into business? Yes? Right? Or you already have one, right? So a lot of you ask yourself, should I start something new? Kasi you want to leave maybe the corporate world, you think you want to have more time, but it's in my book that I actually share all the truths about entrepreneurship. A lot of people think you're going to have more time when you start your own business, but I'll tell you, it's not true. And you have to be really passionate about what you're going to do, what business you want to take on. Because when the times are really, really hard, there will be times you want to give up. And it's that passion that will carry you through everything you do, whatever business that is. Also, a lot of the business books, I'm sure you've tried to reach out to when you go to the bookstore, they're a bit technical. And I wanted to provide a book that was very real, honest, conversational, so that even if, no matter what your background is, and you have no business background, you can arm yourself with something that can actually help you decide if you want to start a business or not. So it's really all honest and based on true-to-life experience. So who here has a copy of the book already? Yay! I can see some of you raising it there at the back. I just want to mention, after this talk, I'll be doing book signing at the booth A1 right there in front. I can sign your books, and you can also grab a copy if you haven't. And so there. So I just wanted to really share, the things that I learned about business. And the book is actually very special because when I was writing the book, I wanted to make sure it's content you can't find or Google on YouTube. Kasi lahat, diba, nag-Google na. Lahat na nahahanap na on YouTube. So it's very, you'll see a lot of real-life experiences. And it's divided into 2 segments, a business segment and a beauty segment. And each segment is bookended with interviews from the biggest leaders in beauty and business. We have the Gokong Wei, C, MVP, Zobels. You know, these are the same people I admire so much, and I wanted to reach out to them and get, you know, pick on their brains and see what big leaders like this, what was important to them. On the beauty segment, you might be wondering, why is there a beauty side to the book? You know, a lot of people think, oh, as long as I have skills like dedication, passion, strategic thinking, being organized, good communication skills, or leadership, you think that's all it takes to have a business, but it's not. The beauty section is important because I want readers to realize that running a business is not just about hard skills. You know, there are a lot of values you have to hold on to, and it's a very, very tough industry. And if you don't have a strong sense of self, you might crumble. So it's very important to talk about conversations in the beauty segment of the book about understanding self-worth, the pressures of social media, or if you're a woman with kids, you know, balancing business and being a mom. And even that chapter is also has a lot of interviews with the biggest names in beauty. And you'll learn so much from the life of different women, such as Heart Evangelista, who's speaking tomorrow. I also have interviews there with Bianca Gonzalez, who's also speaking tomorrow, and other women like Catherine Bernardo, Casey Concepcion, and all. So if you haven't grabbed a copy of my book, I hope you can get one at booth A1. And so there, that's it.
Let's give her a round of applause for that wonderful talk. Thank you so much. And please do join me here on stage. Now, I know that you just gave, you know, how you started and how it was always kind of in you at a young age. But maybe there are some people here that maybe really have no clue. Maybe they're not inclined to that, but they want to do it. Like, I would say that if I would start a business, I really, as in like, no ideas pop in. You know what I mean? So maybe there are some questions here from our Cosmo girls. We are opening the floor for a Q&A, and this is really the time to ask all those questions. And also a quick reminder, as she said, you can get her book, and I think you'll be signing some copies today.
Yes, I'll be signing, doing book signing right after this.
So there you go. We are opening the floor for some questions. Now, I will start. I know you went and took you went back to school.
Yeah.
So was that something that was intimidating at first? Because you know how masters is something that people, it's either they want to do it or it's like, nah, I'm not even thinking about that. So what made you really decide that this is going to help me and, of course, Happy Skin?
Ever since I graduated from college, I always wanted to take postgraduate studies.
Okay.
And I was always setting it aside because, you know, you're already comfortable with your routine, your life, or what's going on with your life right now. And I reached a point in my life that, you know, I was itching and dying to learn more. And I knew you can only achieve growth if you step out of your comfort zone. When you're in a time of your life that you feel very comfortable, you might not be growing anymore. So it's so important to pluck yourself out of that and find a space where you can grow. It won't always be easy. MBA, that was 2 years, and you know, I was working
along with everything else, of
yeah,
course.
so
yes.
I was, the kind of MBA degree I got was I was working during the day and I would take classes at night.
Wow.
And it was, you know, it really took a toll on myself, but I've never felt more fulfilled. And, you know, the growth I had as a person was amazing. And I really encourage people to just get out of your comfort zone and find something to make yourself grow.
There you go. That's something I actually always personally wanted to do, but it's also about finding the time. You know, I think we make those excuses that no, I'm too busy and I can't do it. But if you were able to make the time and do it at night and still be able to conquer everything, then I guess there really are no excuses. I do believe we have a question here.
Hi, I'm Cindy from the Cosmo team, and then I have a question from one of our readers, and then she asked, how do I start my own beauty business with a small capital?
Okay, I think no matter what kind of capital you have, any business will need capital. What is capital? The money you need to put in to start your business. Maybe you'll have a small capital, maybe you'll have enough, but that's why there are different kinds of businesses. You can get into a partnership or a corporation where you have more than one partner. And you know, people always ask me, what if I didn't get, you know, the kind of connections you had because of your modeling and your experience as a beauty columnist? Or what if I don't have enough capital? But that's why there's the kind of business you can set up, you can have partners so that you find people with different skill sets to bring to the table. That's very important because if you all have the same thing to bring to the table, sayang naman. So let's say one is good in marketing, one is good in finance, or the capital can be contributed by different people. There's no excuse because you can start a business by bringing people together to start one.
Thank you so much.
All right. You know, you mentioned something earlier, and I really kind of want to focus on that. How you said you don't just start a business based on what you like. You know what I mean? You really have to find what the market needs and what's missing. But there are some people, I would say, have started, and maybe it didn't go so well that first time. So what do you have to say to the people that have started something and maybe are a little hesitant to go again? Because it does hurt, because you pour out, you know, everything, and then maybe it really didn't take off. So what do you have to say for that?
You know, I think if that person wants to start a business again, let's say you shut it down because it didn't work well, you shouldn't. It's a better time to start as something new because you've already learned from the first mistake.
Yes.
All the learnings you have there, you can use it to start your second business and make it even better. Now, it's sad if you did the first business and shut it down and didn't learn anything from it because you'd be committing the same mistakes. So I think it's really important to assess what went wrong with your first business before you start a new one so that you can apply those learnings when you start a new business.
All right. I am learning. Oh, we have another question.
Hi, Rissa.
Hi,
I have a question. So, hi, I'm Reti from the Cosmo team. Happy Skin is a proudly Filipino, makeup brand, and you've been collaborating with different local artists and celebrities, and we wanted to know, what are the qualities that, you look for whenever you collaborate with someone? So, how did you come up with, your lines with, the very first, I think, was Chris Aquino, and then you have Liz Oy, etc., and then now Heart. So, we're wondering, how do you come up with who you want to collaborate with?
Like every partnership, I think it's very important there's a brand fit. It doesn't make sense to come together and partner if there's nothing you have in common. I think you'll see the biggest collaborations, even globally. There's always something that cements the two brands together because the person has to like makeup because it won't make sense if we get someone who doesn't even use makeup. Should have a love for makeup, and there should be a brand fit. That we see. If you look at all our collaborators, they're actually all users of Happy Skin. From Chris Aquino when we started, Liz Oy, Heart Evangelista, Casey Concepcion, Catherine Bernardo, and a lot of those collaborations came about because I remember for Casey, we just bumped into each other at the nail salon, and the nail technician told me she was using our polish, and it all stemmed from there. And even Heart, even before we collaborated, she was featuring and using Happy Skin in her first book. So it's a very natural partnership because there's already so much history even before we partner together. So I think that's very important.
There we go. We also, I think our audience is a little shy, when it comes to business. Sometimes, nakaka-intimidate.
That's why you should get my book.
Yes. And
because it really talks about starting a business in a conversational way.
So once again, the floor is open for questions, but I'm going to take, advantage of this because I am, up close and personal with you. 2013 is when you started Happy Skin, and at the time you would say there was nothing like it on the market, and you said it kind of was in between. And I love Happy Skin. I loved it from when it started. But would you say that now in 2019, especially with all kind of the products being thrown to the market, would you say that it's is it a little harder to come up with something new and different? And how do you kind of find that idea, for these girls here listening?
If you have a business, and it's very important that you always adapt to the market. You can't be too rigid and think, oh, whatever the formula of our success was during the first 3-5 years, it will work for the next 10 years. So it's very important that you respond to the market. Happy Skin is actually a brand that's very consumer-centric. We always listen to our consumers, whether, I'd be browsing through Instagram and looking at the comments of women, and that's where we gain our insights, what we should develop next. We always reach out to our followers and ask, who do you want to see us collaborate with? Or what product do you want us to put out next?
Yes.
And it's very important to always listen to the consumer and grow with the times and also change and adapt. So I know there are so many brands out there, but we're very confident that, the skin caring makeup is a proposition that Happy Skin owns, and it's very inimitable, and, although a lot of the brands have a lot of celebrity faces fronting their campaigns, at the end of the day, I think every woman will want to come home to makeup that doesn't ruin their skin.
There you go. Oh, we have a question as well. The light is kind of bright, but
Sorry. Hi. Hi, Rissa.
Hi.
I have a question lang about how can you use social media to like enhance your brand or parang to like promote it then?
Oh, okay. Actually, when we started the brand in 2013, we didn't have budgets for print ads, TVCs, or billboards. And I think when we started, we entered at the right era. I can't imagine doing Happy Skin, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have budgets to compete with all the big brands. But social media has become an equalizer because whether you're a big brand or a small brand, everyone has a voice. And so many businesses have sprouted about because social media or Instagram or Facebook has really empowered these different brands to sell without needing the money to put up an actual store in the mall. So it's actually an exciting time now. And that's how you can use social media to start a business. And when it comes to social media and the experience people have online, it's so important to have consistency from end to end. The experience, like from the moment you Google or search for Happy Skin, until you land the Instagram page, until you get into the store, until you come home with a product and use it, the experience has to be consistent. I think that's very important. You don't just focus on the packaging, but your social media doesn't complement what you're trying to offer. Or your social media page is so amazing, but when they get to the store, there's really bad customer service.
Yeah.
So you do have to be consistent, and that's very important.
Thanks.
thank you so much. We do have a question from this side.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, what if you're partners with your husband and you don't usually agree about a lot of things like pricing and
My
all?
husband?
Because
Sorry,
my
can you
husband.
repeat?
What if you're partners with your husband or with
Oh.
a family member and you don't usually agree with
Okay.
certain things about the company? Because that's what happened to me.
Oh, okay. That's the first time I've gotten that question. Starting a business with family. And that's very difficult because I've heard and witnessed a lot of stories that sometimes families
Yes,
disintegrate.
It's tricky.
It's tricky. I think if you're about to start a business with a family member, whether it's your sibling or your husband, or do it as a family, I think you have to set boundaries. Like, you don't want also when you get home, you're still talking about work, and it's clear the kind of relationship you have. At home, it's going to be husband and wife. In the office, it's going to be as partners. That's one. So that I think you have quality of life, a better relationship, and now, if you do disagree with a family member, I think from the get-go, you have to establish certain rules. Like, for example, who is the one deciding when it comes to operation? Who is the one leading when it comes to marketing? So that there's always a point person at the end of the day who will be deciding. Or your partnership can be, there are three of you, so there's always a tiebreaker. But I think my advice is, whether you get into business with friends or with family, it's very important that you share the same values. Because when you start a business, it's like marriage, to be very honest. And having a brand is like giving birth to a baby because you really give more than 100% of your life and your time. You have to be prepared for it. And sharing values is so important because it affects whether you have the small decisions like how much petty cash should we keep in our admin, to bigger decisions like the benefits we should give our employees and all that. So I think that's one of my biggest learnings, that you should share the same values with the people you work with, because when you do have shared values, decisions are so much easier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. I think that's our last question. Rissa, thank you so
you so
much for that
much.
wonderful talk.